Hey, welcome to the second video dev diary for CK3AGOT. Before I get this video going, I want to just mention that ModCon is coming up soon. That's run by one proud Bavarian. CK3AGOT's representation will be by our 3D lead swordsman and one of our other leads, Voltaire. ModCon, if anyone hasn't heard about it, it's going to feature trailers for mods, leaks, a lot of design philosophy, some panels, a whole bunch of things without making this whole video about how complicated and awesome ModCon is going to wind up being. It's run by one proud Bavarian on his channel, so I'll link that. And yep, and the content of this video is going to be rivers in the CK3AGOT mod and how we make sure that they're flowing downhill the entire time. Yeah, I'm just going to show the process I use to make that happen. I don't know what other modders are doing, but I use a combination of going back and forth between Illustrator and Photoshop. So let's get into that. So here we got this purple chunk is an extension of the Blackwater Rush we'll be adding, and showing a little bit up here. These purple rivers are going to be added. The blue ones were the ones from the lands maps, and there's a couple more canon rivers mentioned in the Riverlands, and I think it's kind of weird not to have canon rivers mapped. So we're going to make sure we do that. This right here would probably be the River Derry. This is the next one. This right here should be like, I believe, Big Willow, Little Willow. And I forget this one. This is Ripple Down Rill, I'm assuming. Up here would be like the Widow's Wash. Widow's Wash not being mentioned in, not being on maps or anything, and seeming somewhat small, but also we're told that it has islands in it, which means it should definitely show up on a map that's quite large. So we do what we can. Alright, so what we've got here is I basically take a path in Illustrator, or in Photoshop here, make a path for each segment of the river, and then I'm going to move them into Illustrator, stroke them with a gradient, and move them back and forth, do a couple things, and then make sure that the height map has rivers that every possible segment is always flowing downhill. So this is my smart object that takes me straight into Illustrator. You can see the stroke options here. A whole bunch of boring clicking back and forth trying to use the eyedropper tool in Photoshop, and clicking and making sure that all of these gradients, which look wrong right now, wind up looking right. Alright, so the goal here is to have it visible in Photoshop and basically blend in with the underlying height map. As you can see, there's a couple spots where it's either too dark or too light, and I can adjust the height map to make that work, but there's a little more work to be done here. Jumping ahead a little bit, this last little fork here is definitely, I did discover it was definitely going uphill previously, so that's this adjustment coming into play here. Okay, so basically once I'm happy with the way the gradient stroke is looking, I'm gonna make a selection and then copy only the 1 pixel wide river, which is what I'm doing here, but I wind up with a little tail because of that other part. Just have to delete that. So getting to this point is 90% of the battle. It's really a matter of what is the current river system you're working with and how complicated is it, how many branches are there. Obviously some are a lot more complicated, but at this point, if the game was to load, the river itself would 100% be, each segment would flow highest elevation to lowest elevation, and then the river itself entirely would go highest elevation to lowest elevation. However, there are some spots where the river is higher than the banks of the river, which makes no sense and would look absolutely terrible. I really should have loaded it just to see and laugh at it, but this is 90% of the battle, and the rest of it is really going to wind up being, first off, I'm going to just duplicate and blur this layer a whole bunch of times to give a natural progression from the sharp, jagged, pixelated river to actual banks. And then from that point, it's really going to be just lightening and darkening the banks so that everything flows well. And this is probably the much more boring, tedious process, which is updating the rivers.png with the new flow of the river altogether, since I did change the shape. And let's see what it looks like in game. Alright, so first thing I've got to do is repack the height map. And then we're gonna look at the beginning of each segment of the Blackwater Rush and make sure it looks like the banks look natural and that every segment is coming downhill, no uphill water flow. I know that beginning part, just because of the angle, that like northern tail does look a little strange, but I did double check and yeah, it is 1000% going south or going downhill. Really happy with how all of these banks look. Also noting that this terrain is far from complete. This is iteration 1 or 2, definitely being touched up. I did cover up and use an older version. Also, I've currently only showing this river, but the height map and terrain scene here should be relative, like it's beta level for sure. So the height map is, I'm confident in this part at least. Here's another look at this river coming in. Here's where it flows into the wider part of the Blackwater Rush. I will be making that more seamless, so that's definitely something that will be poked at in the near future here. And the final spot, I believe, Castlewood's up here. And also, as far as where places are, pretty sure this right here is where Transit is. Alright, well that'll be the end of this video's content. I did think we would have another dev able to provide a dev diary before I made a second one. That apparently hasn't happened out yet. Tons of stuff I would like to go over through Riverlands and things, but I really don't want to have to edit an even longer video. Obviously, I'd rather be prioritizing time on development. Again, I'll have the links below for our Reddit and Discord. Please join. Always fun to interact with the community and have more people around. Hope everyone enjoyed this very sneak peek and limited on the map a little bit there. And because we should have a much larger trailer and sneak peek of our map coming up shortly in ModCon.